You may start, ma'am, please.
Have we got the participants let in? Have we got everybody let in? Gurudas?
Yes, sir. Means everybody is in. So far, nobody is in the waiting room.
Okay, good. Julie, shall we start or shall you want to wait for a minute and then start? No, you're muted, my dear.
I beg your pardon. I believe a minute wouldn't do us any harm, Shondip.
Good evening and welcome to this event of the Library Committee of the Bengal Club. For those of our guests who have joined us from various cities outside Kolkata, the Bengal Club happens to be the oldest heritage club in this country. And within a few years from today, we are going to be celebrating 200 years of existence as a club. National Librarians Day is celebrated in this country on the 12th of August. But at the Bengal Club, we have decided to honor librarians today, the 30th of September. Just as a matter of interest, even 12th of August is wrong date to celebrate National Librarians Day because it is ostensibly celebrated as a tribute to Sri S.R. Ranganathan, who was considered the father of library science in India. But in fact, Professor Ranganathan was not born on 12th of August, he was born on 9th of August. But because of an inadvertent error in recording, it is still celebrated as 12th of August. So since we do not celebrate it on 9th of August, it probably makes no difference if we celebrate it on 30th of September instead. And of course, the very first Indian librarian hails from this city. And he was none other than Sri Harinath Dev, who from 1907 to 1911 was the librarian of the National Library of India, of course, at that time known as the Imperial Library of India. So we thought we'll put this together. And of course, putting this together, the most active member of the library subcommittee of the Bengal Club, Dr. Julie Banerjee Mehta. Julie, as you've just heard, is somebody I know from the time she used to go to a school not very far away from mine. But thereafter, being much more clever than me, she got a PhD in post-colonial and diasporic literatures from the University of Toronto. She went on to hold the chair of the library subcommittee at the very well-known Tanglin Club in Singapore. And she spent a lot of time in different parts of Southeast Asia as commentator for various countries on various books and literature before she returned with her husband Harish to Calcutta some years ago to fulfill her duty as a good daughter and look after her mother. But Julie, of course, is somebody who's talented in various things, including cookery, and she's author of a book on cooking as well, amongst other things. I will not stand between you and the people we seek to honor today, librarians, and I'm going to hand over the proceedings to Dr. Julie Banerjee Mehta. Julie, all yours.
You forced me to take a bow, Shondip. Those were very kind words, and I don't think anyone could have summed me up with my interest in cookery, which you threw in, better than you. Thank you, Shondip. Yes, today is indeed a celebration. When our president, Mr. Ambarish Dashgupta, asked me to fashion an event around the idea of paying homage to librarians on Librarians Day, I was looking for ways to get some pretty smart librarians on the panel to interact with our members and our subcommittee members and our guests today. For this celebration of Librarians Day, as Dr. Shantanu Chatterjee told us, we have to thank Dr. S.R. Ranganathan. And there's one book that comes to mind that our librarian Shebunti drilled into my head and said, don't forget, prolegomena to library classification, the 5 laws of library science, which is pretty much a handbook all over the world. So the Bengal Club was founded in 1827, oldest social club of Asia, as pointed out by Dr. Chatterjee. The club was established on February 1st, 1827. One of the first tasks for the committee was the acquisition of a local habitation for the club, and by July 1827, established in a large 4-story block in Esplanade East, known as Gordon's Buildings. In 1845, the long contemplated plan of the removal of the club from Tank Square was accomplished, and the building chosen was that occupied by Thomas Babington Macaulay. He was law member of the Supreme Council from 1834 to 38. The owner of this property was Babu Kaliprashan Norsingho, a wealthy resident of Jurashako, who translated the Mahabharata in Bengali. Now, in 1970, the club moved to a truncated part of the original building. And it'll be pertinent to note that Bengal Club, until comparatively recent times, has actually been the Bara Sahib's Club. By content, its members were drawn only from senior executives of the corporate sector. A major casualty of the move to Russell Street, where we are now, was the library, a rich collection of books accumulated almost from the first origins of the club in 1827. It was too compendious to be accommodated in this new building, yet to be constructed, and therefore, unfortunately, a reduction became necessary. Thanks to a band of volunteers, every single book was checked and marked for retention or disposal. It is estimated that some 7,500 volumes were rejected. These were generously donated to the Asiatic Society, St. Xavier's College, and the National Library. Dr. K.M. Daniel, who had been connected with the library since 1944, retired in 1970 and was replaced by Mr. Fear, A.H. Fear, if I remember correctly. And on this man fell the brunt of reassembling the new library. N.G. Sato, the president in 1970 writes, and I quote, "I bumped into one R.I. McAlpine, who at that time was bounced into the job of overseeing the pruning and moving of the club's library, a task very few people could have undertaken so thoroughly and successfully." The reference to all that I've told you can be found in our library in the book, The Bengal Club, 1827 to 1970, which is in 2 parts. The first, written by H.R. Pankridge, very famous, and the second 2 is The Bengal Club, 27 to 1970, written by none other than the chap I was talking to you about, Mr. McAlpine. This book has a second edition, published in May 1997, with an introduction written by President Mr. Alok Mukherjee. All these tomes are available at our Bengal Club library. With that contextual history of our heritage club, it is my singular pleasure and honor to give you a slice of the careers of our distinguished panelists. These esteemed librarians would have been celebrities and very powerful folk in Greece. As Jacques Derrida, in his luminous work, Archive Fever, reminds us, those who were in charge of the archives in Greece were known as magistere, magistrates. Knowledge truly was power, and only if they permitted and gave permission would scholars get access to the archives. So tread carefully, all you folk who are going to ask your questions, who care about our powerful panelists. The first up is Dr. Prokriti Ranjan Goswami, an archives and library management professional based in New Delhi. He has more than 40 years experience in the domain of library management and development. Dr. Goswami obtained a master's degree in history, Ranchi University, followed by a master's degree in library and information science. Their career graphs look like a litany of wish lists for any scholar. And I won't want to go on and on, but I do want to say that in 1978, he obtained the master's degree in library and information science and a PhD in library and information science in 1995, also from the University of Delhi. He's headed several government departments and autonomous bodies. I'll just mention a couple: the Research, Reference and Training Division, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Indian Council of Social Science Research, Director of Documentation and Library, Ministry of Culture, Government of India, Director, Central Secretariat, the Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts from 2013 to 2017. He's written 2 seminal books, The Statistical Information System in Libraries, New Delhi, and Corridor of Books, Memories, Ideas, and Reflections of a Library, as recently as 2019. Moving on to a newly made friend, Dr. Shantanu Ganguly introduced to me my dear friend, Papia Mukherjee, the librarian at Loreto College, who's also going to be joining in the discussion. Dr. Shantanu Ganguly is currently the Chief Librarian, B.B. Dixit Library, All India Institute of Medical Sciences. Again, a litany of great accomplishments: an MSc in Ecology, Masters in Library Science and Information, MBA, PGDCA, and a PhD in Marketing of Special Library Sciences. He is what they call today in the 21st century a project management and a knowledge management specialist. Across the ponds, I'm very happy to announce that we have Dr. Jean Carroll Ewart, who holds an MA and PhD in comparative literature from the University of Pennsylvania, where she specialized in narratology and the French Nouveau Roman. She's a research librarian at the University of Florida, where she supports programs in global literatures in English and in film studies. It'll be interesting to hear such a vast range and a cross-section of those who serve the public and scholars in the field of knowledge. Jean Carroll Ewart's interests lie in the formal study of narrative, and she has written extensively on William Faulkner, on Art Spiegelman, on Margaret Atwood. My old friend Papia Mukherjee went to my alma mater, Loreto. She started at Loreto, Darjeeling, then went to Loreto College, Darjeeling. She did her MA at in English at the North Bengal University, after which she joined Loreto, Darjeeling as teacher and librarian. Then she did a Bachelor of Library Science from Jadavpur University, went back to Loreto to join as professor in English in Kurseong College. And now for the last 20 odd years, she has been a leading light at our historic library at Loreto College. And then we have our very own Shibonti Sengupta, who's going to be completing close to 20 years next year with the Bengal Club. She went to Gokhale Memorial Girls' School in Kolkata. She graduated in English honors with a first class from Calcutta University, Jogomaya Devi College, and then a Bachelor of Library Science, Master of Library and Information Science, and was a university topper at both the bachelor's and master's degrees. Internship was at the British Council Library, and then she has a certificate from the Goethe Institute at the Max Muller Bhavan in Kolkata. The evening is conceptualized in two parts. In the first part, a team of Bengal Club members from the library subcommittee and passionate book lovers, Dr. Amita Chatterjee, Raka Sen, Dr. Chaitali Moitro, Dr. Aparna Kastagir, Anju Monchi, and Mr. Vivek Krishna will ask one question each to the panelists. Panelists answer briefly and to the point, with answers limited to 1.5 minutes. That's going to be a lot of minutes at the end of it. And then we have this quick fire exchange. That's the way that I've conceptualized this, because all of you know your jobs and all of you are articulate, and I'm hoping very much that our questioners will also keep it sharp and to the point. That's the first part, to all the panelists. The second part of this program will be trained on our very own librarian, Shebonti, and we'll begin with her remarks for 3 minutes, to be followed by the library team asking a few questions. Hopefully, there will be a surprise ceremony at the end of it, and we should find a sense of a happy ending by 7:20 p.m. So without further ado, let me start the ball rolling with the first question to the panel. Each of you can pop out and answer the question. What do you recall as your greatest contribution in your memorable career as a librarian? So go for it. Shall we start first with Dr. Shantanu Ganguly, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Julie, for this beautiful introductions. I am highly obliged, and thank you for bringing out such luminaries people on the board. Well, the most important thing is that what I have achieved is, I think I am very much attached to books and research. That is the first primary thing. It has helped me a lot to understand a lot of things from the diverse fields, because my background is from the environmental sciences, now into healthcare sector. Well, Dr. Sandeep Chatterjee would be knowing more about this. And the second thing, which is more that there is a continuous demand in the entire society for more and more knowledge augmentation. So what is the best delivery method which is available to provide the best knowledge services? I think these are the areas where basically I explore a lot.
Fantastic. And you've kept to your 1.5 minutes and to the point and sharp. Thank you so much, Shantanu. Could we have Dr. Prokriti Ranjan to come in now and make his pitch for what in your career do you think you have contributed memorably as a librarian? Dr. Goswami, please go ahead.
Can you hear me? Yes, okay. Thank you very much for a very generous introduction. I would like to state here that when I was Director Libraries in the Ministry of Culture, the one work which was assigned to me was to prepare a blueprint or a draft of the National Mission on Libraries. And it is the first time in the country, you have noticed there are many missions, National Mission on Health, a National Mission on some other water resources, etc. A National Mission on Library was launched in 2012, and the government allocated later 400 crore to this mission. And all the preparatory work was made by me with the help of our Joint Secretary and Secretary Minister of Culture, Mr. Jawahar Sarkar, who is now Member of Parliament these days. And after that, all the action plan for the national mission was prepared by me. So this is the most important contribution I have made. Secondly, I want to state that wherever I have worked, I found that it is your responsiveness, responding to the needs of the readers, understanding their needs, their scholarly needs, that I gave that the first preference in my work. So this is in brief I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Goswami. That was comprehensive, to the point, and illuminating. Dr. Jean Carroll Ewart, would love to hear your views. If you would pop in, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mehta. I have only been a librarian for 4 years. So in this august company of lifelong career librarians, I'm not sure what I can say, but I will say that the most important thing that has happened to me since I've become a librarian was, of course, in March of 2020, when the United States, along with the rest of the world, shut down. And the University of Florida libraries, 220 of us on the staff, became responsible for supplying the research and teaching needs of the entire university as they went online. I had never been in a Zoom meeting prior to that time. I ordered very few electronic books for the Department of English because most of them preferred print books. And I had never taught a class on Zoom. And so in the space of 3 weeks, we converted the entire university to electronic supply of all of those things. It was a very big stretch for most of us. Technology was not our long suit. We had specialized technology librarians for that who could not do all of it themselves. And so the learning and teaching that went on in response to the worldwide pandemic, I think, was the most heroic effort that I have ever been engaged in.
How inventive of you, and how precise you are in what you actually learned on the job. Amazing, in 4 years. Papia, what would you like to add to that? Is Papia Mukherjee from the Loreto College?
Sorry for that. Thank you very much for inviting me to be a panelist in this gathering. Thank you, Bengal Club, and thank you to Dr. Mehta for inviting me. So my most rewarding, professionally, the most rewarding thing that has happened to me was about 20 years ago, when I was asked to modernize Loreto College Library. Though I'm extremely fond of books, and that is the reason why actually I switched over to being a librarian. I was very intrigued to go through this process of modernizing the library, which entailed basically to computerize the holdings at that point. And slowly, as we progressed, we made further, enhancement to these new technologies as they came by. So now we are fully automated library with an RFID in place. So that has been my most rewarding experience as a professional.
And quite a task. I know from the library that I visited when I did my first degree there. Wonderful. Thank you, Papia. Shibonti, go for it. Keep it short, keep it tight. What in your career in the last 19 years at the Bengal Club is your greatest contribution in your career as a librarian?
Good evening, everybody. I believe that my greatest contribution in the tenure of last 19 years at Bengal Club is the fact that I have been able to create interest, generate interest among the young readers who happen to be the dependent members, the children of our club members. And over the years, I found that young people have been using the library more. And I have even seen that several of the children who are now grown up are very well placed in their chosen field, in their chosen profession, and they are placed globally. So it gives me immense pleasure when they come back to the library as adults, and many of them will be becoming Bengal Club members later on. And when they come to meet me and when they discuss about the experience, the learnings they have been able to do at the club library, and they acknowledge my cooperation in shaping them up and providing them the materials which they needed during their research works and during the student life. So that acknowledgement, I find it is really very rewarding for me.
Compelling that you actually have a generational impact on the members and their dependents, now adults. So with that, may I request Dr. Amita Chatterjee, please, to open the floor with a question. And once again, just to reiterate, as we want to get as many voices in as possible, many opinions from our panelists, please keep your answers short, and each question can be fielded by one of you, one after the other. As I said, maybe, as you see fit. There's no hierarchy of who should go first. Just make it a conversation and we'll run with it. Okay, Dr. Amita Chatterjee.
Well, greetings to everybody and salutations to our librarians who have really made the flow of knowledge easy and made knowledge accessible to all of us, and has never used knowledge as power, even though knowledge is power, but no librarian has ever used knowledge as power. And that's why my salutations to all of them. In spite of Shivanti's experience, I find that, general readers' interest in libraries are waning now. And with the digitization of reading materials, footfalls in the library are going down. So how can you really increase or take some measures so that the footfalls in the library gets increased? That's my question.
Dr. Goswami, do you want to take that first?
Yes, I believe the question is how we can increase the footfall in the library in the current scenario. Here I would like to state that library is for the people who are staying, public libraries, for the people who are staying nearby. Academic library is for the students and the teachers and the faculty. If you take the perspective from the academic library, I think the level of scholarly discussion, communication with the academic staff, it has to be raised by the librarian. A librarian thinks about the knowledge resources in a different way. This is some English professor of English has said that is alphabetical learning, or learning by dividing the knowledge according to the classification scheme. But if you want to interact properly with the academicians or the research scholars, you have to properly understand the structure and content of the field in which you are serving. I will give a very simple example. When I joined Central Statistical Office in the year 1982, when I was very young, only 28-year-old, an IAS officer asked me what is the difference between gross domestic product and the gross national product. But though I had some economics background, I could not answer that question. Then I thought, if you are working in a library, if you don't know the collection and you don't know the organizational objective, the objective of the Central Statistical Office and its mainstream publication, the content and structure, you are nowhere. So I think the basic understanding of a librarian should understand the contents on the holdings of the library and interpret it to the scholars in a very fitting manner. There are many ways of that. There are social media is available through which you can advertise, you can propagate your library, and you can prepare a proper metadata system, not only the library catalog, because library catalog is not sufficient for a huge library. You have to understand for a particular authors, what are the books you have, what are the editions of the books you have, and what are the difference in the different edition of that book. So this type of understanding can certainly invite more scholars to the library, and you can become a trustworthy person. Trustworthiness is very important. If you are working in an academic institution, you should be trusted by the academicians and the research scholars and the students. He is the person who can give me the right answer. So I think this is the most important aspect. And briefly, I have elaborated what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think what might be a good idea is to have the other question one by one. Raka, would you like to ask the question? And maybe we can ask Dr. Shantanu Ganguly to answer your question. Raka, go ahead. Unmute yourself, Raka.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, Raka.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, good evening, Raka, Dr. Raka.
Yes, okay. My question actually is very simple. The concept of library has undergone profound change during this pandemic time. It is not possible for the readers to visit the libraries to read or to borrow books. Everything has to be done virtually and online. How are these the big libraries coping with this changing time to make the library more reader friendly? Please share your experience with us. It is not possible for Bengal Club Library to change so fast, but I'm sure all the others, I mean, the public libraries are doing their best.
Thank you, Raka. Over to you, Dr. Shantanu Ganguly.
Yeah, Dr. Raka, that's a very interesting question, but I will put it up on a very different way. See, I come from a background where two different types of libraries are there. Just taking a cue from what Dr. Goswami was mentioned, first of all, we need to understand we have a different categories of libraries, starting from National Library, Public Library, Academic Library, School Library, Special Library. So there are different categories of libraries. So when the category of libraries are different, your clients are also different, your users base is also different. We need to understand that first. Fortunately, I have worked with two major libraries in the coming years. Like, for example, I worked with an organization called TERI, the Tata Energy Research Institute, the largest organization in the, it's an NGO, it's the largest organization in the field of energy, environment, and sustainable development. One of the survivability of the bread and butter is only, to do projects. And we have been engrossed into different types of projects we have done. In fact, that's why I myself call myself as a project specialist. And one of the important part is that every year I have to earn my bread. Not only my bread, in fact, my all 20 members' bread also. So I have to, run kind of a projects where I can earn the breads of the other people also. So that was the major thing. So my stakeholders were totally different. So library was a very small microcosm part of it. It was more on projects where very specialized informations were provided to them, and you have got a different stakeholders. But whereas in the, if I look at it from a All India Institute of Medical Sciences, which are highly academic, highly research oriented area. Now taking the first question regarding footfalls, I have a 2-floor library. I don't have enough space for the doctors to come and sit here. It is completely scenario. It is completely different because here the doctors, they want to come and sit and spend and read the time. Now there are challenges. Certainly there are challenges when there was on the first wave, I was with TERI. At that time, lot of online resources were there. And one of my core strength area, in fact, Papia, Dr. Goswami, they all know, my core strength area is on implementation of knowledge management. So I implemented knowledge management and my clients were all there. So they can all get their information. Those who are working for the client, they can all get it on a nutshell, they can get it from there itself. Whereas when I'm in the second wave, when I was in AIMS, here everything was online resources. So all the doctors were there on the field, because if they are not in the field, then they can't have the patient care system. So we need to understand that. So during this particular thing, what we have done, we came out something called, my concept is digital knowledge medical services. That was the concept we came out. But during the pandemic, the remote access to the resources was a major thing. Then more digital resources were procured. In fact, Professor Randeep Guleria very categorically said, get more and more digital resources, no more print resources. So that was one of the things. Reference query service was very high. Online reference query, continuous basis, we were giving it. Lot of online training programs were conducted. Lot of online training programs were conducted. Lot of hands holding was done. And when a part of it, when the pandemic was over, the first and the foremost thing, that challenge came to me, how do I open the library? Because doctors will be flooding in, they will come and do. So the first thing is that I developed an SOP. And there was a strict SOP was laid down, that you are making a distance, wearing the mask, using the sanitizer, everything was laid down. So the lot of things, a lot of training, lot of communications was done on that particular part. Second thing is that I created a vigilance team, because a vigilance team, we keeps on going inside the department, and one doctor is sitting very next to the next doctor and they want to talk to removing their mask. So constantly that vigilance team took a round inside the thing. And we had to literally object and tell the doctor, if you are removing your mask, please get out of my library. In some of the places I have told them like this. I was very blunt, because there was a lot of fear and I had the jurisdiction of telling them like that. The third thing is that there is a lot of posters we created, very innovative posters we created for do's and don'ts, and it was placed at different locations so that people come to know. Seating arrangement of the entire gamut was completely revamped, and it was a lot of physical work I had to do for that particular part. And then putting a lot of sanitization bottles, automatic sanitizer, atomizer at different places. So all those things came into the picture when I was in AIM. I'm in AIMS. So these are the two different scenarios of the two different institutions.
Excellent. And the fact that you've been so closely involved as the editor, you're one of the editors of the International Conference on Digital Libraries, and you've done so much to develop these digital systems. So, your ontological, your experiential, all of that comes into bearing when you are hands-on and having to deal with doctors on a daily basis. Thank you so much. Dr. Choitali Moitro, are you here from London?
Yes.
Wonderful, Choitali. Yes. Would you like to pose your question to Dr. Jean Carroll Ewart, please?
Yes, first of all, regards and best wishes to you panelists. We are honored. I was just curious to know that as reading is becoming more and more varied, what are your suggestions, please, to strengthen the databases of wherever you are working? That's it.
Thank you. One of the problems that librarians have is that often our search terms are not the ones that readers are using, including especially young readers. And sometimes they are outdated in terms of assumptions that you could term sexist or racist. Young readers especially very, very sensitive to that. Decolonizing the librarians' databases has been an especially important thing based on the need for transparent terms that recognize historical colonial racism. So our biggest battle has been getting the companies that provide our databases to understand that some search terms cannot be used anymore and that young people are offended by them and should be, rightly so. They're leading the way for us, for the older generations. And then helping them to understand that there are search terms that the young people will go for automatically. And our databases have to respond to the use of those terms. And so that's been a constant process of education for the librarians responding to younger users, and then taking the information that they've gathered from those users up to the purveyors of the databases so that they understand the search terms that young people want to use and prefer to use. And so they're also purging the databases of older search terms that are unacceptable. And I think that librarians play a key role in that because we respond to both those audiences.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Julie D.
Oh, I think she stepped out.
Yes, well, I think we have Dr. Aparna Khastagir giving us the next question. Julie D, are you there?
I think she's gone off hibernating. Oh no, she's here. She's right here.
Yes, okay. So just a suggestion, would Dr. Khastagir please go on with your question? She might be having a, Julie D might be having.
I'm fine. Thank you, Chaitanya.
Okay.
My screen just went frozen for a minute. Thank you, Chaitanya. Yes, Aparna, Dr. Aparna Khastagir, would you like to ask the question that you have to Papya, to Dr.
Yes.
Papya Mukherjee? Thank you.
Yes, hello everyone. On a rather less serious note, you see a major misconception regarding librarians is that people think that they just check out books, which is basically the job of circulation staff. I have even heard ladies walking into a university hospital library and asking questions like, I'm looking for a fat yellow book with pictures. And when asked what kind of pictures, she answers, well, something medical. And after a lot of reference interviews, it finally turns out that she is looking for a basic anatomy book. How do you librarians deal with such frustrating situations?
Actually, in my college library, I am the desk clerk as well, because I sit there and I check in and check the books out, mainly because I have to guide them as well, you know, and especially now with the, you know, the technology, because I find that the new, this generation, they may be very smart on the social media and we call them tech savvy. But when it comes to handling, you know, these library technologies, like say we've just had the RFID kiosk, you know, we just got the RFID kiosk. They get terribly, you know, confused with it. So what they do is they, when they're returning, they perform the task halfway. They'll either press return and then second time they have to press return in order to have the book successfully returned, but they don't do that. And then they run away, they go away. And if you're not looking, what happens is that later on they come back and then there is a, you know, kind of an argument that no, I returned my book. Why is my card showing that I have a book due? So in order to avoid all that, I have to sit there and monitor all this, you know, to make sure that they return the books. So this is something that I face quite often. People coming in and saying, you know, that yellow covered books, and you'll be surprised actually, you know, some of the staff also do that. You know, I forget the name Papia, but you know, it had a yellow cover and a blue cover or something like that. But like you said, after a lot of reference questions this way and that way, and it's easier in the academic library because you know the subject at least, or the person, at least even if they don't articulate the subject, you know which department that particular person is from, and then you eventually manage to find the book. And you know, this brings to my mind, and I like to share this with you, that actually we follow the Dewey Decimal Classification system to arrange our books. But I'm finding, more and more that this is not working with the present generation. It is all right for librarians to remember those numbers, but for them, they want it just there, at a click, their thing. And so they're always in a hurry. They push the books back in any old place, and then what happens is they can't find the book later on. So I have to repeatedly tell them at the orientation as well as from time to time that a book misplaced is a book lost. So you have to place it in the right place. But they don't seem to get the general, I'm talking about the general body of students, not all of them. Some of them are extremely bright, quite a few of them who know exactly what it is, and they return the books. But so now I'm thinking that, it would be nice if we color coded them. So since they're so interested in the color of the book, and this was actually, I had seen this in Indian Institute of Science some years ago when they were actually experimenting. I don't know whether they have continued with the practice because I stopped going there after my cousin who was a professor there passed away. So now they came out with this, a colored coding for each book. So I'm seriously thinking that would be much easier because they'd see the color and they'd know where to go and which shelf to, put the book back in. And all this description of blue, black, yellow,
Thank you, Papia. That was really, there's a wry sense of humor there, but maybe it can work, the color coding. I don't know.
Yes, it's
yes. So, Mr. Vivek Krishna is up next. Vivek, what would you like to ask Dr. Jane Ewart? What is your question?
Yeah, well, it's thank you for inviting me, Julie. It's great to be here this evening with this illustrious cast to talk to. I think one of the big plus points of a library is the fact that it's a source of information. And in this very easy age that we live in now, where there's a lot of news floating around, and you say that people say you want a medical opinion, go on to Google and you'll get that. But you don't get knowledge from that. You just get something that's written down. How are libraries working to be a certified source of reliable information? How libraries dealing with that? I think perhaps Jane can enlighten us.
Thank you. I think that's an excellent question because I think every librarian, from the secondary school librarian with a very small room full of books to university librarians with 7 million volumes, we are all fighting the battle against misinformation. So at my library, we rely a lot on our social media teams because the students respond to social media to help the students understand about fake news and misinformation. And especially now because I don't know if this is happening in India, but in the United States, there's so much misinformation around the vaccine and quacks who are peddling fake cures and telling you if you take horse dewormer, you will not get this. And it's atrocious, the amount of misinformation. So combating that has become not just an academic exercise, it's a matter of life and death. We have doctors in our emergency rooms here in Florida who have been assaulted by patients who demand that they give them treatments that we know will not work and that in fact will make it worse. And so it's become really an issue that we're out on social media every day telling the students, you can trust peer review, you can trust scholarly journals. Everything you see online is not true. You have to know how to evaluate your sources. It's become a battle that for us is a matter of really people are going to die if they don't understand this. People are dying because they don't understand it. And so everything we do says knowing the difference between a reliable source and your best friend on Facebook is the difference between life and death now. And you have to know who to trust. You have to know how to evaluate the sources that you're using. And I think every librarian in the world is fighting this battle right now. We are all in this together.
Thank you.
Very compelling. I think Ms. Anju Munshi, if you're there, would be wonderful for you to give the panel the last question. So perhaps Dr. Shantanu Ganguly, keep it very short, please, sir, if you can answer the question. Anju, go ahead.
Hi and good evening, everybody. I think delightful inputs and great insight. Enjoyed listening to everybody. Bonding with the books is a kind of a romance with the printed word, and it's an ongoing romance, highly authentic and greatly relevant. My question to you is, how is the role of the library different from before the pandemic and now, especially when you know that the requirement and the needs of the readers are not the same anymore because of the pandemic? So how would you answer that?
Well, that's a very challenging question, I would rather say. See, the most important thing is that, like, I am in All India Institute of Medical Sciences, where basically, see, whatever resources which we are procuring, it has to be aligned with the pedagogy as well as with the teaching materials of my faculty members. So today, most of the faculty members, they are looking for digital resources. And there is a tremendous digital transformation is taking place, where the different kinds of delivery model is changing, and all these digital resources are getting integrated with that, so that faculty can pick up the right information from there and then provide it to the deliver it to the right classrooms and all. So that's a very important thing. One of the important thing, as Dr. Vivek raised the question regarding relevancy and all, it is very directed in our institute also, that nobody is supposed to rely on any medical information or health information on any other platforms other than the reliable sources. So it is a very important to go for the reliable sources, even for a very basic informations. And there are teams of people who basically, and my team is also there, constantly we have to nurture the information sources where actually, and the first and the foremost thing we generally look at, what is the authenticity of that source. And then only we, because you can't play around with the the life and death of a patient. So that is most valuable thing. So you need to have a very basic information. And in fact, continuously, you won't imagine, like, for example, if there is, even at night also, I find a lot of people are, a lot of my researcher or my faculty member, they're asking, one operation has to done right away. I want an information. Give it to me, how to go about it. So this information is not available in Google. I have to search. There are certain very specialized databases where I have to look for those kind of clinical decision support system. I have to extract out those informations and deliver it to them at then and there itself, so that they can operate out to the patient at that time.
So much, thank you. That is, really pushing you to the limits of understanding the need for invention as well as innovation. Thank you, Shantanu. I think we'll shift gears and move to the second part of our evening, which will be short and sweet, very sweet, in fact, for Shebonti, and the spotlight will be on her to tell us right at the start a little bit about what it has been like to be the librarian of Bengal Club for 19 years and more. And we are all eagerly waiting your response. Shebonti, go ahead.
Julie, can I just come in for 1 second? And then just,
okay, go ahead.
It's a sort of basic point that I wanted to make. We've had very interesting stuff as far as social media and all is concerned. But in terms of the smaller libraries with closed membership, would it be a good idea that library books are sent out by for local delivery? And I understand that using this system, you get books out a lot and you get them back also. There are much less loss of books en route. So is that correct?
I think I would love to hear, we would all love to hear what Dr. Ewart has to say. Have you started anything like that in the US, Jean?
The university library has better resources for that because we have a bigger budget. During the pandemic, we mailed books to all of our users, and we sent them with a certificate that allowed them to mail them back to us for free. So we picked up the tab for that. Now that the library is fully reopened again, we still have the program, but before the pandemic, it was used for users who were disabled in some way and could not physically come into the library. And now we have gone back to doing that. So we have a number of users who have registered with physical disabilities or ailments that if they were exposed to the general population, some of them still unvaccinated, they can't be exposed to COVID even with vaccines because they have autoimmune disorders. So we're still delivering books via mail for that. But we have stopped doing it with the general population because most people are now coming back into the libraries.
Thank you, Jean. I'll just let Dr. Goswami have a go at this question. If he would like to pop in and answer that, and then we'll move on to Shebunti. Dr. Goswami, are you there?
Yes.
I think the question, Vivek, can you quickly reiterate, very, very focused? What was your question?
Basically, reaching out to your membership by being able to deliver books to their homes. And I think that could well be done for a charge, not necessarily free. And they mail it back again to the library. And in the process, less chance of books getting lost or not returned, and therefore losing out on the resources that you already have with you.
Okay, thank you.
No, see, this experiment, I mean, the lending of books or checking out books through courier service or through messenger service, this was experimentally, it was introduced in the Delhi Public Library, which is a very large public library in Delhi, supported by our Ministry of Culture. And I think this can be introduced. This postal membership was introduced by British Council Library also, Delhi in the 1970s. And in order to promote reading during the pandemic era, I think this is a very good suggestion. And it all depends on the demands put forward by the library members. And I don't think if any library authority will try to refuse that, no, we cannot introduce this. All depends on the understanding between the eager readers, who are very eager to get books, and the library authorities. If they agree, they can introduce it. Loss will be minimum. I think that loss we can bear the loss, but promotion of reading is more important during the pandemic, where you are confined at your residence. You have nothing to do because you need good books to read. I think that is a very good suggestion. It can be introduced by the library authorities.
Thank you.
Dr. Julie, just let me touch upon what Dr. Goswami.
Very quickly, please, very quickly.
Yes.
We're so short
Mr.
of time.
Vivek, actually, this model was developed by British Council. They have introduced, they have done it during the pandemic, and in post-pandemic also, they have not opened the library, but this service is available. They have already done it.
Thank you. Good to know. Good to think about. All right. The floor is all yours. Shebunti, give us a wrap up of your 19 years with the Bengal Club, and then we'll fire you with some questions.
Thank you, Dr. Banerjee Mehta. It has been an extremely pleasurable and enriching experience for me to work at the Bengal Club, not only because it's a heritage club, but this is the place where I believe I have met the best of Bengal. And I keep on learning through my interactions with the members who visit the library and who are voracious with us. And at times I'm amazed to feel the vast area of subjects that they are interested in. And this shows how intellectually dynamic my library members are. And since our library is an open access library, therefore members get the facility to directly browse through the books, and I'm sure this enhances their pleasure for reading. And in this context, I would like to share a very personal experience that for the first time, when I came to the Bengal Club library, I was mesmerized to find Winston Churchill's book, Gathering Storm, which I could not locate in any other library of the city, even not at British Council, because I have literally hunted for this book while I was doing my internship over there. And I feel extremely grateful to the club authorities for providing me this opportunity to walk here, to strengthen my learning process, and I will keep on learning as long as I go. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bengal Club. Thank you, my seniors. Thank you, the members of the library subcommittee, particularly.
Thank you, Shebonti. The obvious aside that I would like to share with members and our esteemed guests tonight is that the first editions of Jonathan Swift, Alexander Pope are in our library, right? In our club library.
Yes.
That's, and that's only a tip of the iceberg. We have some amazing collections, and Shebonti, I think, is a very good resource person. So, just to make it an open forum for you, Shebonti, and before the other team members ask you, what have you done to combat the pandemic? What are the elements or the events that you think you would like to share with other libraries or our guests? In your view, what are the extras that you have brought in?
The most significant point that I would like to mention, and I'd like to share with the panelists present here, that the library subcommittee has been extremely proactive in organizing very interesting events for our members across the globe during this pandemic. Because now we are mostly on the Zoom platform, therefore it gives the scope for everybody to join these events, and we had extremely eminent speakers like Nobel laureate Professor Banerjee and many others. And I think this is the most significant contribution of the library subcommittee to unite all our members globally. And these are the events which are extremely enriching. And everybody has enjoyed, everybody is enjoying, and our members do look forward to these library events.
Dr. Choitali Moitro, you're welcome to fire a question at Shebonti.
You were not audible. Ma'am, you were not audible.
Right. Hello, Shebonti.
Hello, yes, ma'am.
I have seen you for years as a very, very involved librarian, very sensitive to the members. My question to you would be that with so many types of books, did you ever feel the need of approaching different publishers? If you have, which ones would be in your priority list? Could you talk about that, please?
Thank you, madam. Thank you for this interesting question. Yes, of course, from time to time as a librarian, by the career in books, I have felt the necessity to be in touch with some leading publishers. In this context, I would particularly like to refer to HarperCollins, Random House Penguin, and as far as Bengali books are concerned, since we have, in the recent past, we have started procuring Bengali books. I'm in touch constantly with the leading publishers of Kolkata, like Days Art Publishers and Mitra Ghosh in particular.
Okay. Thank you, Shebonti.
Thank you, Shebonti. Is Dr. Amita Chatterjee around? Will you like to shoot your next question, please, to Shebonti?
Oh, yes, it's a sort of personal question to Shebonti. All of us know that from book selection to put a book in circulation, there are various steps. And I would like to know which of the steps interests Shebonti most and what excites her most, and gives the most satisfaction?
Thank you, Professor Chattopadhyay, for this question. I find that, of course, not only me, for any librarian who is associated with the work of book selection, there are certain steps that we have to follow, from procurement to finally put the book to its destination, that is to its reading. And while doing so, the first and the most significant task that I do enjoy as a librarian is book selection, because it gives me enormous opportunity to learn about the growing areas of study, and particularly as far as my library is concerned, since I deal with members who come across from different professions, ranging from doctors to professors to lawyers to senior executives of corporate houses and research scholars. So I get the privilege to learn a lot through book selection. On this particular point, I would like to specifically mention that with the introduction of our Bengal Club book club meets, which we have been organizing since the last 1 year, and so meticulously conducted by Professor Julie Banerjee Mehta. Big thanks to Dr. Mehta for conducting this book club meet. I have come across numerous authors and their works. To be very candid, I never had so much of information about the post-colonial authors in which Dr. Julie Banerjee Mehta has done her PhD thesis. And it's a real pleasure, not only for the librarian, but for all the members who participate actively in the book club meets. So this is, I think, by far the most important task and the most enjoyable task from the point of a librarian that I personally enjoy doing.
Kudos to you, Shebonti. I could have never had such fun in our adventures. Involving the members, and the book club members have grown across the ponds. Thanks to you, Shebonti. You've been such a pillar of strength, and your support to the members is truly noteworthy. One last question. I think Ms. Raka Sen, your last question to Shebonti. We are nearing our 7:15 mark. I'm so pleased that everyone has been so completely on target with time, and we are doing really well. So Raka, go right ahead.
Okay, can you hear me, all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, okay. This question to Shebonti again. I mean, during this pandemic time, the library subcommittee was the most active subcommittee of the club. It really kept the club going. We had 3 or 4 events every month, including the book club. Shebonti, it was Shebonti who had to work tirelessly behind the scene to find out the contact details of the speakers, to coordinate with them, to send out the mailers and posters to our members. It was every 2-3 days at regular intervals. And most of these events were very well attended and very successful. How did she manage all that? The club is actually grateful to her. Please, Shebonti, a little whatever your experience is.
I'm really much humbled at your appreciation, Raka Madam. But I would just like to say that, well, of course, as we have gradually shifted to the virtual platform for organizing library talks, which earlier, before the pandemic, I mean, we used to have physical meetings. Now with the virtual mode, well, the task of a librarian has become much diversified, but I have really been able to manage with all the different works of communicating and responding to members' query and other arrangements, just because I have such a proactive and fantastic library subcommittee who have guided me all through, who have been extremely cooperative. And wherever I have had faced any hindrance, I have always approached them and they have sorted out the difficulty with great care. Thanks once again to everybody.
What a lovely final statement, Shebonti. You've really dazzled us. And once again, I thank our president and our chair, President Mr. Ambarish Dasgupta, for giving us this opportunity to honor our librarian and to honor all the wonderful panelists we've had today. So I hand it over to either President Mr. Ambarish Dasgupta or our chair, Dr. Shantanu Chatterjee. Over to you, and thank you, panelists. You've been wonderful.
That's very librarian speak, either or. But I think you actually want to hand over to the president, Mr. Ambarish Mukherjee, who's here with us, Ambarish Dasgupta, who's here with us, and who's going to, on behalf of the club and the committee, offer his feelings about librarians in general and Shantanu in particular. Ambarish, all yours.
Thank you, Shantanu. Greetings to all the respected speakers and also to the members, attendees. Thanks to Julie, you and Dr. Chatterjee, Shantanu, for giving this program its life, the one that we thought about, commemorate the National Librarians Day, and to felicitate also our own librarian to give this program a life. And thanks, Shantanu, for allowing me to make some comments on the National Librarians Day about the librarians, because this also gives me a chance to undo a travesty that I possibly have done long back in my life to this profession. My aunt was a principal librarian of a very important college in Calcutta. And I used to tease her by saying that you go to your office to read storybooks, yet get paid. She didn't ever object to that. She used to smile. Later on, I came in touch with another very illustrious librarian, as a professor actually, but he was a librarian for a while, who was also my teacher, Professor Shopan Chakraborty, who just passed away recently. And when I shared this with him, he also laughed and gave me a few gospels about this profession. And now, being intrigued by Julie and Shantanu, your exuberance to have this event, I took a little research and study to go through the Odysseys of this library science. I mean, a little bit from the ancient history, from the Sumerians, from the Assyrians, and then to the Middle Age, and then to the modern, this Oxford Bodleian Library. And just a little bit of glimpses of this study. And I was amazed at the array of thoughts and the diversity of the various philosophies, the science behind this subject, the skills that they have brought in, the innovation. And therefore, I was amazed at the kind of contribution in an innovative way that this profession has been making to the enlightenment of the world from the ancient history even till now. And therefore, really, I give my salutations to these professions, to the professionals who have chosen this as their career, the way they are really enlightening this world. Coming to our own Shantanu, whom I consider as the priest or the custodian of the sanctum sanctotum of the most holy place of the Bengal Club, the library. She has been doing it for the last 19 years, smilingly, handling around 3,000, 3,500 members, standing by, witnessing, pioneering all the evolutions of the library. I mean, the e-corner, the archiving, the Bengali book corner, the Nobel corner, and contributing in a significant way to this evolution and being the sailor of the compass in this vast ocean of the Bengal Club books that we have in our library. And very well done, Shantanu. We are really very proud of you. And just to say a last line about Shantanu, that there is a quote that if I make a Google search, I get 100,000 responses. But if I ask the librarian, I get one response, and that is the most correct one. And one person also said that the best asset of the library goes to home at night. That is our librarian. And I indeed feel, Shantanu, you are the best asset in our library. I'm proud to get a chance to talk about you, and this we are virtually felicitating you, but very shortly as we get a chance to meet, we will be in person doing our honors and felicitating you. Thank you, Shantanu, and I thank all the speakers also. And thanks to all the library committee members also for making this happen. Back to you, Shantanu.
Thank you, Ambarish. Thank you for those words of encouragement to Shantanu. I think, the best quotation about libraries that I've come across, it was Albert Einstein said, which is the only thing that you absolutely have to know the location of is the library. And coming from Albert Einstein, that's a very high compliment to the holy place the library commands, both in the club and in other institutions. And of course, the custodian of this temple, the priest, if you like, is the librarian. And, Ambarish just told you about how many answers you get if you Google. I think the big difference between Google and the librarian is Google gives you all the information. The librarian gives you the knowledge that you want and need. And there is a huge difference between the information and the knowledge. The other thing, of course, is that Ambarish talked about an ocean of ideas. We are now swimming in an ocean. We are inundated, I should say, in an ocean of knowledge around us. And the job of the librarian is not only to tell us, to show us where we need to dive into that ocean, but also to teach us how to swim. And I think Shantanu has been doing exactly that in Bengal Club, teaching the members of the Bengal Club over the years where to dive into that ocean of information, and holding their hands and putting a little helping belt around them, and even showing them how to swim in this ocean to get to where they want to get. So thank you, Shantanu. And it only remains for me, on behalf of the Library Subcommittee of the Bengal Club, to offer my sincere thanks to all the speakers that have certainly spent a lot of their time illuminating us this evening Indian time. And it has been really an amazing experience for me, and I'm sure for a lot of other members who've tuned in and heard this program. So thank you very much. And thank you very much to our own panelists who have asked very incisive, very, very surgically incisive questions, and of course, got the most appropriate responses. And finally, no word of thanks would be enough to thank the effort that Julie has put in to organize this program. So thank you very much, Julie. And I have to end by saying, of course, this entire event is dedicated to Shantanu Sengupta. So thank you for being with us. Thank you, good evening, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Shantanu. That was brilliant. Bye, everybody. Thank you, panelists.